It was a cold Friday night in the small town of Riverdale. The streets were mostly empty as midnight approached. Officer James Merritt was 3 hours into his night shift, patrolling Highway 16 as he had done hundreds of times before. The veteran police officer of 12 years sipped his lukewarm coffee as his eyes scanned the road ahead. The beam of his headlights caught the silver reflection of an SUV about 50 yards ahead. Nothing seemed unusual at first, but as Officer Merritt followed at a distance, he noticed the vehicle drift slightly over the yellow line, then correct itself too sharply. The pattern repeated twice more. Probably just another tired driver, Officer Merritt muttered to himself. His training kicked in. Tired drivers could be just as dangerous as drunk ones. He flipped on his patrol car's flashing lights but kept the siren off. The SUV continued for another 100 yards before slowly pulling over to the shoulder. Officer Merritt radioed in the license plate and his location to dispatch. Running a routine traffic stop on Highway 16, mile marker 42. Black Ford Explorer, license plate KGH5497. Copy that, Officer Merritt, the dispatcher's voice crackled back. All clear to proceed. Following protocol, Officer Merritt waited for the information to come back before exiting his vehicle. The computer screen showed the SUV was registered to a Raymond Walsh with no outstanding warrants. Still, something didn't feel right to him. Years on the force had given him a sixth sense about traffic stops, and tonight that sense was tingling. He adjusted his body camera and stepped out of his patrol car, one hand resting near his holster as a precaution. The night air was bitter cold, and his breath formed small clouds as he walked toward the SUV. From his angle, he could only make out the silhouette of a man in the driver's seat. "Good evening, sir," Officer Merritt said as he approached the driver's window. "I'm Officer James Merritt with the Riverdale Police Department." The window rolled down slowly. The driver was a middle-aged man with short dark hair and glasses. He wore a plain blue jacket and had both hands visible on the steering wheel, something Officer Merritt always appreciated. "License and registration, please," Officer Merritt said, shining his flashlight briefly into the car. "Of course, officer," the man replied, his voice surprisingly steady. "Was I speeding?" "No, sir. I noticed you weaving a bit back there. Everything okay tonight?" "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Just tired from a long day of driving." Heading home from visiting family, the man explained as he reached for the glove compartment to retrieve his registration. Officer Merritt noticed the man's hands were trembling slightly despite his calm voice. As the driver handed over his documents, Officer Merritt caught a whiff of something strong, cologne, perhaps, but applied too heavily, as if to mask another smell. "Mr. Walsh, is it?" Officer Merritt confirmed, reading the license. "Yes, Raymond Walsh," the driver nodded quickly. While maintaining conversation, Officer Merritt swept his flashlight around the interior of the vehicle in a casual manner. The front passenger seat was empty except for a fast food bag. The back seats appeared to be folded down to make room for what looked like luggage covered with a dark blanket. But then, as the beam of light passed over that pile in the back, Officer Merritt caught a small movement. Something had shifted under the blanket, and then, for just a brief moment, the light reflected off what appeared to be a human eye, wide with fear, staring directly at him from between the folds of the fabric. Officer Merritt's blood ran cold. He maintained his professional composure, but inside, his heart began to race. He had seen someone, in the back of that SUV. And whoever it was, they were hiding, or being hidden. Officer Merritt kept his face neutral despite the shock he felt inside. Years of police training had taught him how to hide his emotions in dangerous situations. He handed the license back to Raymond Walsh with a steady hand. "Mr. Walsh, would you mind stepping out of the vehicle for a moment?" Officer Merritt asked in a casual tone, as if this was still just a routine traffic stop. Walsh's eyes darted nervously to the rearview mirror. "Is that really necessary, officer? It's freezing out there, and I'm just a bit tired from driving all day." "It won't take long, sir. Just standard procedure when I see someone weaving on the road. Need to make sure you're okay to drive," Merritt explained, keeping his voice friendly but firm. Walsh hesitated, then nodded. "All right, if we must." As Walsh unbuckled his seatbelt, Officer Merritt placed his hand on his radio, pressing the emergency signal button twice, a silent alert to dispatch that he needed immediate backup without alarming the suspect. When Walsh stepped out, Officer Merritt guided him toward the front of the SUV, positioning himself so he could keep an eye on both the driver and the vehicle. He needed to buy time until backup arrived. "Have you been drinking tonight, Mr. Walsh?" Officer Merritt asked, shining his flashlight briefly in the man's eyes to check his pupils. "No, sir. I don't drink," Walsh replied. His right foot was tapping nervously on the ground. "Where are you coming from tonight?" "My sister's place in Oak Ridge, just a family visit." Officer Merritt nodded, making mental notes of every detail. "And where are you headed now?" "Home, in Pennville. About an hour from here," Walsh said, glancing back at his SUV. Every time Walsh looked at the vehicle, Officer Merritt's suspicions grew stronger. Something was definitely wrong. In the distance, he could hear the faint sound of sirens, still miles away but approaching. "Mr. Walsh, I notice you seem a bit nervous. Is there anything I should know about?" Officer Merritt asked directly. Walsh's face paled slightly. "No, officer. I'm just tired and cold. Can we wrap this up soon?" "Just a few more questions," Officer Merritt said, stalling. "You mentioned you're coming from Oak Ridge. What part?" As Walsh began to answer, Officer Merritt saw movement through the back window of the SUV. It was subtle, just a slight shift of the blanket, but it confirmed his fears. Someone was definitely hiding in there. The radio on Officer Merritt's shoulder crackled to life. "Unit 307, this is dispatch. Backup is 3 minutes out. Do you copy?" Walsh's eyes widened at the mention of backup. His entire demeanor changed in an instant. "Why do you need backup? I was just driving a little tired." Walsh's voice rose with panic. His hand moved toward his jacket pocket. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them," Officer Merritt commanded, his own hand moving to his holster. "I need you to remain calm." Walsh froze, his face a mask of desperation. "Look, officer, there's been a misunderstanding. That's my niece in the back. She's just sleeping." Officer Merritt knew this was a critical moment. He needed to maintain control of the situation without escalating it into something dangerous. "Mr. Walsh, I'm going to need to check on your niece," he said firmly, "for her safety and yours." "She's fine. She's just sleeping," Walsh insisted, his voice cracking. As they stood in tense silence, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Walsh looked frantically between Officer Merritt and the road behind them, clearly calculating his options. "Don't make this worse than it already is," Officer Merritt warned, seeing the panic in Walsh's eyes. "Backup is almost here. Let's handle this properly." Walsh's shoulders sagged as two police cruisers appeared in the distance, their lights flashing through the darkness. He seemed to realize he was trapped. What Officer Merritt didn't know yet was just how serious the situation truly was. The person hiding under that blanket had a story that would shake the entire community to its core, and this routine traffic stop was about to become the most important moment in Officer Merritt's career. Two police cruisers pulled up behind Officer Merritt's patrol car, their red and blue lights painting the highway in flashing colors. Officers Wilson and Rodriguez stepped out, hands resting on their holsters as they approached. "Everything okay, Merritt?" Officer Wilson asked, eyeing the nervous man standing by the SUV. "I need to check the back of this vehicle," Officer Merritt explained calmly. "Mr. Walsh here says his niece is sleeping in the back." Walsh's face had gone completely white now. Small beads of sweat formed on his forehead despite the cold night air. "This is ridiculous. You're harassing me for no reason." Officer Rodriguez moved to stand beside Walsh, while Merritt and Wilson approached the SUV. Walsh tried to step forward, but Rodriguez placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Sir, please stay right here while my colleagues take a look," Rodriguez said. Officer Merritt opened the rear door of the SUV slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. The interior light came on, revealing the blanket-covered shape in the back more clearly. Officer Wilson stood behind him, flashlight ready. "Hello? Is anyone back here?" Officer Merritt called out softly. At first, there was no movement. Then, slowly, a corner of the blanket shifted. A small hand emerged, trembling. "It's okay," Officer Merritt said gently. "You're safe now." He carefully pulled back the blanket to reveal a young woman, not more than 20 years old. Her wrists were bound with zip ties and silver duct tape was stretched across her mouth. Her eyes were wide with fear and relief as she looked up at Officer Merritt, the same eyes he had glimpsed earlier. "Oh my God," Officer Wilson whispered behind him. Officer Merritt quickly turned to Rodriguez. "Cuff him, now." Walsh suddenly tried to break free, shoving Rodriguez hard. "She wanted to come with me. She's lying if she says otherwise." Rodriguez recovered quickly and tackled Walsh to the ground, while Officer Wilson ran to assist in restraining him. Officer Merritt focused solely on the young woman. He carefully removed the duct tape from her mouth, trying to be as gentle as possible. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse and barely audible. "He was going to kill me. He said he had a place in the woods." "You're safe now," Officer Merritt assured her as he used his pocket knife to carefully cut the zip ties binding her wrists. "I'm Officer James Merritt. Can you tell me your name?" "Alicia," she said, rubbing her raw wrists. "Alicia Farrell." The name hit Officer Merritt like a punch to the gut. Alicia Farrell had been missing for 3 days. Her face had been all over the local news, with her parents making emotional pleas for her safe return. She had disappeared from the parking lot of a shopping mall in the neighboring county. "An ambulance is on the way," Officer Merritt told her, removing his jacket and placing it around her shoulders. Her clothes were dirty and torn, and she was shivering uncontrollably. Outside, Walsh was now handcuffed and secured in the back of Rodriguez's patrol car. He was shouting something, but no one was listening to him anymore. Officer Merritt helped Alicia out of the SUV and guided her to his patrol car where she could sit in warmth and safety. As they walked, her legs gave out, and he caught her before she fell. "I didn't think anyone would find me," she whispered as tears began streaming down her face. "He said no one would ever look for me where he was taking me." In the distance, the wail of an ambulance siren grew louder. Officer Merritt sat with Alicia in his patrol car, the heater running at full blast to warm her. "How did you know?" she asked suddenly. "How did you know I was in there?" Officer Merritt smiled gently. "I saw your eyes. Just for a second when my flashlight passed over the blanket. It was enough." Alicia closed her eyes as tears continued to fall. "I was trying so hard to make some kind of noise or movement when I heard you talking to him. I was afraid you'd just let him drive away." The ambulance pulled up, its bright lights joining the police cruisers. As paramedics rushed toward them, Officer Merritt realized that this traffic stop, this moment of noticing something just slightly wrong, had saved this young woman's life. And as he watched the paramedics help Alicia onto a stretcher, he knew that what they would discover about Raymond Walsh in the coming days would reveal just how close she had come to becoming another tragedy. The small hospital waiting room buzzed with activity as Officer Merritt sat, still in his uniform, filling out his report. It was nearly 4 in the morning, but sleep was the furthest thing from his mind. Down the hall, doctors were examining Alicia Farrell, treating her for dehydration and the injuries she had sustained during her 3-day ordeal. Chief Parker arrived, his face grave as he approached Officer Merritt. "Good work tonight, James. Really good work." Officer Merritt looked up from his paperwork. "How's the investigation going at Walsh's house?" Chief Parker sat down heavily in the chair beside him. "They're still searching, but what they've found so far..." He lowered his voice. "It's bad, James. Really bad." "Tell me," Officer Merritt said, setting his pen down. "Walsh had a hidden room in his basement, soundproofed." "There were?" Chief Parker paused, choosing his words carefully. "There were photos on the walls. Dozens of them. Young women who looked similar to Alicia." Officer Merritt felt his stomach turn. "Other victims?" "We think so. The forensic team is working to identify them now. They also found journals. This wasn't Walsh's first abduction." A nurse approached them, interrupting the conversation. "Officer Merritt, Alicia is asking for you. The doctor says it's okay for you to see her briefly." Officer Merritt nodded and followed the nurse down the sterile hallway to Alicia's room. She looked small in the hospital bed, an IV running into her arm, but her eyes were clearer now. "You came," she said softly when she saw him. "Of course," he replied, taking a seat beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow." She fidgeted with the edge of her blanket. "My parents are on their way. They were on vacation in Florida when it happened." Officer Merritt nodded. "I know you've already talked to other officers. If you feel up to it, I need to ask you a few questions about Walsh. Alicia took a deep breath. He approached me in the mall parking lot, said his car wouldn't start, and asked if I had jumper cables. When I went to my trunk to check, he pushed something against my neck. I felt a shock, and then everything went black. A stun gun, Officer Merritt said. They had found one in Walsh's glove compartment. When I woke up, I was in some kind of basement room. No windows. Her voice trembled slightly. He told me I was perfect, and that I would be traveling with him to his special place. He said the others had disappointed him, but I wouldn't. Officer Merritt wrote in his notepad, careful to keep his expression neutral despite the horror of her words. Did he mention any of the others by name? Alicia shook her head. No, but he took pictures of me. Lots of them, and he kept talking about someone named Sarah, how I reminded him of her. This information matched what the forensic team had found in Walsh's basement, numerous photographs of a woman labeled Sarah who bore a striking resemblance to Alicia. Yesterday, he said we were leaving, that it was time to go to his special place in the woods. He made me take sleeping pills, but I only pretended to swallow them. Her eyes filled with tears. I was so afraid he would check, but he didn't. That's why you were conscious in the car, Officer Merritt realized. Alicia nodded. I heard the police siren and felt the car stop. I knew it might be my only chance. When he was talking to you, I tried so hard to move just a little bit, hoping you would notice. You did exactly the right thing, Officer Merritt assured her. Your quick thinking saved your life. There was a knock at the door, and a doctor entered. I'm sorry, officer, but Miss Farrell needs to rest now. Officer Merritt stood up. Of course. Alicia, your parents will be here soon, and I'll check on you tomorrow. As he turned to leave, Alicia called after him. Officer Merritt? There's something else. When he was driving, before you stopped us, he was on the phone with someone. He said, the cabin is ready. I'll be there with the new one by morning. Officer Merritt froze. He was working with someone else? I think so. He called him brother. Officer Merritt's mind raced. If Walsh had an accomplice, the case was far from closed, and somewhere there might be a cabin waiting. A place where other victims might have been taken before Alicia. Thank you, he said urgently. This could be very important. As he hurried back to Chief Parker, Officer Merritt realized that what had begun as a routine traffic stop was now expanding into something much darker, and it was far from over. The police station was in full emergency mode by 6 a.m. Officers who weren't even on duty had come in after hearing about the case. The conference room walls were covered with maps, photos, and information about Raymond Walsh. Officer Merritt stood near the front, explaining what Alicia had told him about Walsh's mysterious brother and the cabin. We need to find this cabin, Chief Parker said, addressing the room full of officers. Walsh isn't talking, but his phone records show multiple calls to this number. He pointed to a series of digits written on the whiteboard. The calls bounced off a cell tower near Miller's Ridge, about 40 miles north of here. Officer Rodriguez raised his hand. That's mostly forest up there. Lots of hunting cabins, many of them off the grid. Exactly, Chief Parker nodded. We're organizing search teams. State police are sending helicopters to help cover the area. Officer Merritt studied the map of Miller's Ridge. The area was huge. Miles of dense forest with only a few dirt roads cutting through it. Finding one cabin could take days, and they might not have that much time if there were other victims. What about Walsh's real brother? Officer Wilson asked. Does he have one? Officer Merritt shook his head. I checked his background. Only child. Parents deceased. The brother Alicia heard him talking to might not be a blood relative. Chief Parker picked up a folder. Walsh's bank records show he withdrew large amounts of cash every month, always on the 15th. Last withdrawal was 3 days ago, right before he abducted Alicia. Payments to his partner, Officer Merritt suggested. The question is, who? As the meeting continued, a young officer burst into the room. Sir, we found something on Walsh's laptop. He had it encrypted, but tech finally got in. He handed Chief Parker a printout. The chief's face darkened as he read it. There are emails between Walsh and someone using the name Hunter. They talk about the collection and adding new specimens. The chief looked up, his expression grim. And there are coordinates. Within 20 minutes, 3 police cruisers, including Officer Merritt's, were speeding north toward Miller's Ridge, followed by an ambulance and a tactical team van. The coordinates from Walsh's computer had pointed them to a remote area accessible only by a narrow dirt road. Officer Merritt gripped his steering wheel tightly. The case had become personal for him. He had been the one to stop Walsh, to see Alicia's eyes in that brief moment. Now, he felt responsible for finding any other victims before it was too late. The convoy turned onto an unmarked dirt road, tires kicking up dust as they navigated the rough terrain. After 3 miles, Chief Parker, who was leading, signaled for them to stop. On foot from here, he ordered through the radio. The cabin should be about half a mile ahead. They moved silently through the forest, weapons ready. Officer Merritt and Chief Parker took the lead, with a tactical team spreading out to surround the area. Through the trees, they could see a small wooden cabin with a rusted pickup truck parked outside. "No movement," whispered an officer with binoculars. Chief Parker gave the signal. The tactical team rushed forward, securing the perimeter while shouting, "Police, come out with your hands up." There was no response from the cabin. After ensuring the area was secure, they approached the door. Officer Merritt's heart pounded in his chest as the tactical team leader counted down. 3, 2, 1. They burst into the cabin, weapons raised. The smell hit them immediately, musty, damp, and something worse underneath. The main room was empty except for basic furniture and a ham radio set, but a trapdoor in the floor stood partially open. Officer Merritt approached it cautiously, flashlight in hand. When he shined the light down into the darkness, what he saw made his blood run cold. 3 women, chained to the wall, looked up at him with the same desperate hope he had seen in Alicia's eyes. They were alive. "We need medics. Now," he shouted, already moving toward the ladder leading down. As he descended into the underground room, one thought kept repeating in his mind. They had found some of the victims from Walsh's photographs, but there was no sign of the man called Hunter, the brother who had helped create this house of horrors. The small hospital conference room was quiet except for the soft whirring of the air conditioning. 3 days had passed since the rescue at the cabin. Officer Merritt sat across from Sarah Lindsay, the woman whose photos had covered Walsh's basement walls. Unlike the other victims, Sarah hadn't been held captive in the cabin. She had been reported missing 5 years ago, but had escaped Walsh's grasp and changed her identity. "I never thought I'd have to tell this story again," Sarah said, her hands wrapped tightly around a paper cup of coffee. "After I got away from him, I moved across the country, changed my name, my appearance, everything." "We appreciate you coming forward," Officer Merritt said gently. "You might be the only person who can help us find Hunter." Sarah nodded, her eyes distant. "Raymond wasn't always a monster, you know. We dated in college. He was kind, quiet, but his brother Edward, that's Hunter's real name, he changed him." "Edward Walsh?" Chief Parker asked, looking up from his notes. "No," Sarah shook her head. "Edward Klein. They're not actually brothers by blood. They met in some online forum for photography. That's how it started, with pictures." Officer Merritt leaned forward. "What can you tell us about Edward Klein?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Tall, thin, has a scar along his left cheek from a car accident. He's brilliant but cold. No emotion in his eyes at all." She shuddered. Raymond would do anything for Edward's approval. It was like Edward had some kind of power over him. "Do you know where Edward might go if he felt threatened?" Chief Parker asked. "There was another place they talked about. A house near water. I remember because Edward said it was perfect. No one would hear anything there." Sarah closed her eyes, trying to remember. "They called it the Final Gallery. That's where they planned to display their collection. Permanently." The words sent a chill through the room. The 3 women rescued from the cabin were still recovering, each sharing similar stories of abduction by Walsh, always following the same pattern he had used with Alicia. "Did they ever mention a location?" Officer Merritt pressed. "Something about a lighthouse. I remember because it seems strange. There aren't many lighthouses around here." Chief Parker's eyes widened. "Clayton Point. The old lighthouse keeper's house has been abandoned for years." Officer Merritt checked his watch. If Edward Klein had heard about Walsh's arrest, he might already be fleeing, or worse, destroying evidence. Within an hour, a full tactical operation was underway at Clayton Point. The old lighthouse stood on a rocky outcropping, with the keeper's house, a dilapidated two-story building, sitting 50 yards inland. Officers surrounded the property while Coast Guard boats patrolled the water to prevent any escape by sea. "No signs of movement," reported the tactical team leader through the radio. "Infrared isn't picking up any heat signatures." "Proceed with caution," Chief Parker ordered. "You could be hiding." Officer Merritt approached the house with his team, moving silently across the overgrown yard. The front door was locked but showed recent signs of use. The dust on the handle had been disturbed. After the tactical team breached the door, officers moved through the house room by room. The first floor appeared abandoned, covered in dust and cobwebs. But when they reached the basement door, they found a new padlock securing it. "He's been here," Officer Merritt whispered. The lock was cut, and officers descended the stairs with weapons ready. What they found exceeded even their worst expectations. The basement had been converted into a macabre gallery. Glass display cases lined the walls, each containing personal items, jewelry, driver's licenses, locks of hair, all labeled with women's names and dates. "There must be 20 cases here," Chief Parker said, his voice hollow. Officer Merritt approached a table in the center of the room. On it lay a laptop, still open, and beside it, a note. "To whoever finds this, you're too late, but my work will be remembered. The final collection is complete. Hunter." The laptop screen showed a countdown timer with just 12 minutes remaining. Below it, a map with 5 red dots blinking at different locations across the city. "It's a trigger," Officer Merritt realized with horror. "He's planted devices somewhere." As the tactical team's bomb expert rushed to examine the laptop, Officer Merritt noticed a familiar name on one of the display cases, Sarah Lindsay, with an empty space labeled "Awaiting Final Item." Edward Klein wasn't running away. He was completing his collection, and Sarah was his target. "Get Sarah to safety now," Officer Merritt shouted into his radio as he raced up the basement stairs. "Klein is after her." The bomb squad expert was already working on the laptop, trying to stop the countdown. "These coordinates are public locations," he called out. "A shopping mall, the Central Park, the bus station, a hospital, and the police station." Chief Parker finished, his face pale. "Where Sarah is right now." Officer Merritt sprinted to his patrol car. Sarah had been placed in a conference room at the station for her protection while she helped with the investigation. Now that decision might have put her directly in Klein's path. Rain had started to fall, making the winding coastal road slick and dangerous. Officer Merritt gripped the steering wheel tightly as he navigated the curves, lights flashing and siren wailing. His mind raced faster than his car. How had Klein known Sarah was at the station? Someone must have leaked information, or Klein had been watching them all along. "This is Officer Wilson," came a voice through the radio. "We've evacuated the mall. Bomb squad is searching now." Similar reports came in from the other locations. Every available officer had been deployed. The entire city was on high alert, with evacuation orders spreading through emergency broadcasts. Officer Merritt pressed the accelerator harder. The station was still 15 minutes away at normal speeds. He needed to get there faster. His phone rang. It was connected to his car's Bluetooth system. "Merritt," he answered. "James, it's Parker. Bomb squad found devices at the mall and park. They're working to disarm them, but they're just small charges, not enough to cause major damage. They think they're distractions. His real target is Sarah," Officer Merritt confirmed. "What's her status?" "Officers are with her, moving her to a secure location, but we haven't found Klein yet." The chief's voice was tight with tension. "How far out are you?" 10 minutes. "Has anyone checked the security footage from around the station?" There was a pause. "Doing it now. Wait. We've got something. A maintenance van parked across the street for the past hour. No service calls scheduled for today." Officer Merritt's instincts kicked into high gear. "That's him. He's watching, waiting for her to be moved. Don't take her outside." Too late. Through the radio, he heard shouting, then the sound of gunfire. "Officer down. Shooter on the roof opposite the station," someone yelled. Officer Merritt's heart pounded in his chest. He was still miles away, powerless to help. "Sarah's secure." Chief Parker's voice came through, breathless. Rodriguez pushed her down just as the shot came. He took a bullet in the shoulder. SWAT is moving to the shooter's position now. The rain grew heavier, reducing visibility. Officer Merritt switched on his windshield wipers at maximum speed. As he rounded the last bend before entering the city limits, he saw roadblocks ahead. Officers were stopping all vehicles. "This is Officer Merritt." He identified himself as he approached. "What's the situation?" The officer at the roadblock leaned in. "Shooters on the move." He hijacked a delivery truck after SWAT closed in, last seen heading east on Main Street. East, toward the hospital, the fifth location on Klein's list. Without hesitation, Officer Merritt spun his car around and sped toward the hospital. If Klein couldn't get to Sarah, he might trigger his remaining bombs, and the hospital was full of innocent people. As he approached the hospital parking lot, Officer Merritt spotted the delivery truck parked haphazardly near the emergency entrance. Its driver's door hung open. He pulled up beside it and jumped out, weapon drawn. The hospital was already being evacuated, patients and staff streaming out into the rain. Officer Merritt moved quickly toward the entrance, scanning for any sign of Klein. The description Sarah had given was his only guide: tall, thin, with a scar on his left cheek. Inside, the emergency room was chaos. Nurses were helping patients into wheelchairs, doctors were grabbing essential medicines and equipment. Then, through the crowd, Officer Merritt saw him, a tall figure in maintenance coveralls, carrying a duffel bag, walking purposefully against the flow of evacuees. Their eyes met across the room. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. Officer Merritt saw the scar, the cold, empty eyes. And he knew. This was the moment everything had been leading to since he pulled over that SUV 5 nights ago. The hospital corridor fell silent for a brief moment. Patients and staff who hadn't yet evacuated pressed themselves against the walls. "Put the bag down slowly and put your hands where I can see them," Officer Merritt commanded, keeping his weapon steady. Instead, Klein smiled. "Do you know what's in this bag, officer? Insurance. One button, and this entire floor goes up, along with everyone still on it." A nurse who overheard gasped, causing more panic in the already chaotic hallway. "You don't want to do that," Officer Merritt said, taking a careful step forward. "There's nowhere to go, Edward. The building is surrounded." "This was never about escaping," Klein replied, his voice eerily calm. "This is about completion, about legacy." Raymond didn't understand that. He was weak, got caught because of one careless mistake. Officer Merritt kept his eyes fixed on Klein, but gestured with his free hand for the remaining medical staff to continue evacuating patients. Every second they had was precious. "Your mistake was coming after Sarah again," Officer Merritt said. "Why risk everything for one person who got away?" Klein's expression darkened. "Loose ends must be tied. A collection is only perfect when it's complete." As they talked, Officer Merritt noticed a shadow moving behind Klein. Another officer had entered from the far end of the corridor. They needed to keep Klein distracted. 20 cases in that basement," Officer Merritt said. 20 women whose lives you destroyed. But you still failed. We found you. Now everyone will know what you really are, not an artist, not a collector, just a killer who preys on the vulnerable." For the first time, real emotion flashed across Klein's face: rage. "You understand nothing about my work. Each case tells a story. Each item was chosen carefully." "And what about the bombs?" Officer Merritt asked, seeing the officer behind Klein inch closer. "Were they carefully chosen too?" "Distractions," Klein admitted. "I needed time to finish with Sarah, but since I can't have her..." His hand moved toward the bag. In that instant, Officer Merritt made his decision. He fired a single shot, striking Klein's shoulder. Simultaneously, the officer behind Klein lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The duffel bag slid across the floor toward Officer Merritt. "Bomb squad," Officer Merritt shouted into his radio as he cautiously approached the bag. "I need immediate assistance at the hospital main entrance." Within minutes, the bomb squad arrived and secured the duffel bag, confirming it contained explosive materials with a remote detonator. Klein, now handcuffed and receiving medical attention for his shoulder wound, remained silent as he was taken into custody. Outside, in the rain-soaked parking lot, Officer Merritt watched as the last patients were safely evacuated. Chief Parker approached him, looking exhausted but relieved. "We got him," the chief said simply. And the countdown on the laptop stopped when we arrested him. All devices have been neutralized. And Sarah? Officer Merritt asked. Safe. Rodriguez will recover too. Chief Parker placed a hand on Merritt's shoulder. This all started with you noticing something wasn't right during a routine traffic stop. If you hadn't seen Alicia's eyes that night? Officer Merritt nodded, the weight of that moment still fresh in his mind. Just doing my job. 6 weeks later, Officer Merritt stood in a packed community center. The families of the victims had organized a ceremony to honor the officers involved in the case. Alicia Farrell, now recovered and beginning to rebuild her life, stepped up to the microphone. There are moments that change everything, she said, her voice strong despite her emotions. For me, it was when Officer James Merritt saw my eyes in the back of that SUV. One small moment of connection that saved not just my life, but the lives of 3 other women held captive and prevented more victims from suffering the same fate. As Officer Merritt accepted a plaque of recognition, he thought about how easily that night could have gone differently. If he hadn't noticed the SUV swerving, if he hadn't looked carefully into the backseat, if he hadn't trusted his instincts. Later, as the ceremony ended, Alicia approached him. I'm starting a support group for survivors, she told him, and a program to teach people about situational awareness. Would you come speak sometimes? Officer Merritt smiled. I'd be honored. As he drove home that evening, he reflected on how the smallest actions could have the biggest impacts. A routine traffic stop had unraveled a 5-year string of abductions and murders. Lives had been saved because he had been paying attention. And that, he thought, was what being a police officer was truly about, seeing what others might miss and having the courage to act on it.